So I would like to say hello to everyone and thanks for coming today. We're very excited to be together, and I would like to inform that we will be recording this event. So I would like to inform again you all if anyone is uncomfortable with that or doesn't want to appear in the recording. And you can always reach us if you have any concerns. And I am Sinem, the events lead of AIxDesign, an independent organization and a community of geeky designers, creative techies, and curious minds who are exploring the intersections of design, AI, machine learning, and data. And you can find in the chat in the bottom right corner where I will be posting our social links and other links that we will be mentioning, including where you can reach AIxDesign. And today we will be hosting Aarati Akkapeddi to host the Good Old Days workshop as part of our AI Playground program led by Ambika, aka Computational Mama. You can see both of them highlighted. And Aarati, I would like to introduce Aarati a little. Aarati is a coder, interdisciplinary artist, and educator. They work for the Experimental Humanities Collaborative Network, where they create digital spaces and tools. And in their creative practice, they combine archival material, code, machine learning, and analog techniques like photography and printmaking to create artwork about intergenerational collective memory. And they currently teach creative coding in the design and technology department at Parsons. Hi, Aarati, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I will be sending a link of their work in the chat if you would like to learn more about
I did it already.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry.
And I also would like to introduce Ambika, a computational mama, and as a creative technologist, her work explores coding as a form of self-care and learning. And she's a regular live streaming streamer on Twitch, teaching the basics of creative computation and new approaches to computational thinking. And her streaming series, Coding with Friends, is rooted in creating inclusive spaces for women makers to explore creative computation. And she works heavily with generative text, AI models for text, computer vision, and some simpler machine learning tools. You can also find her work through the link I will be sending.
Excellent. I was surprised by the bio.
Yeah, I have it ready. And I would like to also explain that this event is the third event of the AI Playground program led by Ambika, and it is funded by Stimulating Phone's creative industry, and it is part of the image team among four main teams we will be having, which are image, moving image, music, sound, body poses, and text words. And under each team, we will be having one behind-the-scenes artist talk, which we had the first one with Wales for Climate team last week, and one workshop, which we're having today with Aarati. And you can follow our social channels and have an eye on our Eventbrite page for other talks and events that we will be having this year, and attend the other ones as well. So I will be sending the links in the chat shortly. And also, I would like to introduce that led by content lead of the program, Caterina Rodriguez, we will make the explorations and learnings of each AI Playground topic accessible to the wider community with a public guide. So this guide will contain an introduction to each discipline, inspiration projects, and creative suggestions for how the viewer can expand the subject further. And the workshop participants, like you today, will have the chance to join a Slack channel and can also provide suggestions on what they would like to see in the guide. And additionally, there will be an online graduation show we are planning later in the year where all the workshop participants will have the chance to display the work they developed in these sessions, in these workshops. And more details on that will be announced on a respective Slack channel. And you will be receiving a mail on that, on how to join that Slack channel, actually, shortly after the workshop. So keep an eye on your inbox that you signed the event with. I can also send a link for Katerina's work if you would like to check more. And before starting the workshop, We would like you to also get familiar with Gather if you didn't use it before. So I would like to explain how to use it a little. You can use your arrow keys to move around the space, and you can press Z to dance and F to have some confetti, throw some confetti, and X to interact with objects. And you will also notice that you will be able to interact, talk, and see each other when you walk towards someone, like if cameras and microphones are on, of course, or if you're in the same space. And I will send the comments in the chat as well if you would like to dance a little. And we also like you to customize your appearance from the bottom left corner. Next to your video, you will find a little pen, and then you can pick the change the character option there. So we thought it would be fun to customize our character appearance based on our background in coding and AI. So please customize your hair color based on your knowledge of AI and coding. As if you don't know anything about coding and AI, and like if you're a beginner, please make your hair red. And if you know a little and feeling a little intermediate, please make your hair color blue. And if you're rocking in coding or you cut professionally, please make your hair green. And please also customize your top cloth based on your mode today. So if you're living your best life, please make your top cloth purple. I will be putting all these in the chat shortly. If you're thinking it's a Friday, so trying to stay positive, please make your top cloth gray. If you're thinking life sucks, please make it black. And if life was sucking before, but if you're making your day actually, please make it yellow. So I will put these in the chat. So you can customize your appearance. So we know who's feeling great today and whose day is made better by this workshop. So while you're customizing your looks, I would like to leave the stage to Aarati. So we can slowly start the workshop.
Hello, thanks for having me. I've used Gather before, but this is also like a bit new for me, so bear with me. Before this workshop, I came into Gather and I put a library like all the way to the left in the presentation area. And I also put the presentation that I'll be sharing with my screen on the TV. So I guess if you want to save those links, you can look at it there. I think I also put the slideshow in the chat, but I'm not sure if it saves the history. I can put it there again. And you won't necessarily need the slideshow right away, but eventually you will in order to when we get to like the actual workshop section where you'll need some links that are in there. And then the library is just a link to a Google document where I put some references that might be relevant. And I also made that document editable. So definitely feel free to add your own references if you'd like, or if you have any questions or seeking references, you can also put a question in there too. Okay, so let me get my bearings together and then I will share my presentation. Okay. Can we see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so hi. Thanks for having me again. And my name is Aarati Akkapeddi. My bio was read, so I'll skip this stuff a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to talk today about my artistic practice. I work in my practice with computational methods. So lately it's been machine learning with family photographs. But I also have, I'm a web developer and I work with JavaScript regularly. But yeah, and so in my creative practice, I'm thinking a lot about collective and personal memory. I like working with machine learning because I really feel that the process, particularly working with GANs, generative adversarial networks, which I can talk about in a moment, has been an interesting metaphor for me in thinking about how we remember. And I'll kind of elaborate on that, what I mean by that in a few slides. But first, what are we going to do today? So I'll give some context for the projects that I've been working on that inspired this workshop. And maybe we'll have more of a conversation around datasets, archival stewardship, and taxonomy. And then we will jump into a technical demo. And I just wanted to give a caveat that during the technical demo, we won't be going through the basics of Python, although we'll be running some Python scripts using Google Collab. And so I guess just keep in mind, this is a little bit less of a learning how to code in Python and more just familiarizing ourselves with Google Collab by running some scripts that I've written. And you'll be able to run the scripts on your own images, and we can kind of get more familiarity with it. But I do have some resources if you are new to Python to learn more. I can definitely recommend some places to look at. Okay, so for the past, I think a little over a year, I've been working on a project called I Knew That If I Walked in Your Footsteps, It Would Become a Ritual. And in this project, I've been training a GAN, generative adversarial network, on family photographs, and then using the generated images, the images that the machine learning model generates to create video and print-based work. And it kind of takes two different forms in terms of the artwork itself. The generated images I've been using as negatives, actually, to make a series of prints, and I've been using kind of, I guess, alternative photography techniques. So cyanotypes, and these that you're looking at are lumen prints. So it's when you take expired photographic paper and directly expose it with, in this case, I just printed the generated images as a negative on clear plastic and then use that directly on the paper. But yeah, I've been interested in making prints out of the generated images in order to kind of get back to the original medium that the training data was from, right? Like the family photographs themselves. And so, yeah, I've been producing these prints. And then the second form that this work has been taking is a video piece. And I'll show some clips from the video piece later in the presentation, but in the video piece, I've been interviewing relatives about the original photographs and then using the video footage of those interviews to animate the generated images. And I'll show, I guess when you see it, it might be more clear what I mean by that. But yeah, I guess to talk a little bit more about what I mentioned earlier about working with machine learning and I'm thinking about it as kind of a metaphor. Specifically with generative adversarial networks, what I think is interesting about them is that they produce, you can think of the generated images as approximations. So in this case, I'm showing this machine learning model tons and tons of family photographs, and then it's looking at these family photographs and trying to create its own approximations. And I guess you could say fakes, right? Like fake family photographs, but I prefer approximations. And I think for me, that's been a really interesting way to think about memory itself, because I've been thinking a lot about how memory is really subjective, right? Like I'm not going to remember exact places, exact years. Sometimes our memory changes over time. It changes within the different contexts that you're remembering. And so in a way, I feel like our own memories are approximations for actual experiences, especially when it comes to intergenerational memory, where you're talking about not just memory with one person, but how we remember our ancestors' memories, right? Our ancestors' experiences. So I guess I've been interested in that gap between like reality and memory, and using machine learning in this way has been, I feel like, parallel in the way that the machine learning model is trying to create its own approximations, feels like how I'm trying to remember. But yeah, and so on the right here, what you're seeing is the top image is an actual photograph of my dad, and then the bottom image is a generated image that I personally think looks a lot like him. And so, yeah, I've also had to think about how the fidelity of this machine learning model. So with machine learning and training a machine learning model, you have to have lots and lots and lots of training data, right? Like hundreds and thousands of images. And for me, I was able to get 1,000, which was a little over 1,000 family photographs, which was a lot of work. But yeah, and I've kind of played around with how realistic I want my generated images to look like. And I think this is, it's gone through different iterations, and I feel like the way it is now is just close enough where I feel like you can find the resemblances between the original images and the generated ones. But I also feel like at the same time, these don't look like photographs. Like the coloring is a little bit strange. I think to me, they almost look more like paintings, which I actually really like. Because again, for me, I'm not trying to really create fake or I guess fake family photos in the sense that I want them to be deceptive, but more, I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, it's been interesting thinking about training data as a point of creative control in this process. And then I wanted to make sure I spent a moment talking about bias in machine learning. So I think when you think about machine learning in the context of maybe how you hear about it in the news or being used in different contexts outside of the creative realm, I think it's got a lot of ethical baggage attached to it. I mean, we know about, for example, predictive policing or other contexts where bias and machine learning are pretty important to think about. And I think what's been really strange for me to work with personal data is that my machine learning model is very biased, but I almost feel like I want it to be. So, for example, my training data, which feels weird to say that because they're just family photos, but my family photos skew towards my mom's side because they had a camera growing up, and for various reasons, I have less access to photos on my dad's side. And so the generated images, if I have my model generate 100 images, like, I don't know, the majority of those images will look more like my mom's side than my dad's side. And I think that's okay. That bias is okay for me because in this case, I'm more interested in seeing how the machine learning model becomes a reflection of the archive that I have. And it's true that there is a bias in the archive that I have. So that's also been interesting because it can kind of reflect back to you the bias in your own archive. Okay, and then, so I mentioned I've also been working with video and interviews, and I think that's also been a really crucial part with thinking about working with machine learning and personal data, because I think having, so just to go back a little bit, what I've been doing is taking video interviews of family members, and although I don't include the footage directly, I am including the audio directly. So I'm having their voices directly in the video piece. And I think that was really important in creating kind of an intimacy, because I think a lot of machine learning work can be a little bit cold. Like even the fact that I'm saying training data when I am talking about family photos, which are very personal, there can be kind of a disconnect there. And I think it's been really helpful to work directly with family members and kind of collaboratively too on this project, and include their perspective. But yeah, and so I've also been using, I guess you could say, a deep fake process, but using the video footage to animate the generated images so that the, this is a GIF of that, what I'm talking about here. But so the movements that you're seeing in this GIF are from actual footage of, I think in this case, it was my mom talking. And then I'll play a clip where you can hear the audio too. But I thought this was a really helpful way to actually have, include like the facial gestures and voices of family members without having to include their actual faces, because well, one, I think there was some hesitancy on from my family members in being included in that way. And then two, I think it kind of speaks to the idea around the project where I'm thinking about kind of gaps between reality and memory. And I think, I think having like the generated images speak, and I think fits with that a little bit more. But yeah, and then I think deepfakes have been really interesting to think about too, because again, it also carries a lot of ethical baggage. We think about like, I guess, the deceptive nature of deepfakes. And it feels kind of wrong to say that I'm deepfaking my relatives in these videos, but yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's been a really helpful way, and I mean, I just said this, but it's been a really helpful way to include their gestures and their voices in a way that kind of respects privacy in terms of not including their faces directly, but also fits with the themes that I'm thinking about. Okay, so let me show you an actual video clip. Okay, so this is a deepfaked animated generated image. And I think, yeah, it's my mom talking, and you'll see it's including her voice directly. And then she's talking about the photograph on the left. And these are just test videos. I haven't finished the video piece, but I'll play a bit. Oh, and I guess let me know if you're not hearing sound. I probably should have tested that before this.
This is one of the first family photos we took, and I remember this we took because my mom insisted that we take a family group photo, and we took this in Adyar, near Eros Theater. And yeah, and I was thinking, you can see the tension in everybody's face to go and pose, and all of them are a little bit concerned. So, and my brother was also hungry by then. He didn't eat anything, and I also looked a little bit worried. So it was a big worry for us to go for the pictures and take it. So
yeah, you all look pretty upset.
Yeah. Not upset, more worried, like how are you going to make it? And except my brother, he was angry that he couldn't eat.
And I'll show a couple more.
This is one of the first.
I always do that when I try to these slides and videos. Okay, so here's another one. And in this one, I guess before I play this one, another thing to mention is that when I was interviewing, I feel like the fact that I wasn't including the video footage directly created more trust between me and the person I was interviewing. And so the interviews like got to some heavy topics, and it really vacillates between lighter people kind of joking around versus like talking about really serious experiences. And so part of the challenge that I've been working on, especially as someone that doesn't normally work with video, is figuring out how to edit the clips together so that just enough information is given to the viewer so that you understand that this person's talking about a hardship, but also like balancing out not giving too much information away in order to respect privacy. So yeah, I mean, this is a short test video, but maybe this is a good example of it, because you'll see she's talking about going through like an illness, but you know, the details aren't mentioned, but hopefully still the emotion and the feeling and the reflection comes through.
What were you like? I was a go-getter. I was doing everything and a different personality totally.
How so?
I was pretty aggressive, and also I was very successful in those days. So I was thinking like, oh, I've achieved everything. I can do everything. Yeah. That was the attitude. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you're different now?
Oh, yeah.
In what ways?
Oh, with all our experiences, then you know what, become more humble.
If you had advice that you could give yourself at that time, what would it be?
At that time? No, at that time, like I said, I didn't think I needed advice. Yeah. Yeah, I think yes, I was very bold and outgoing at that time. Yeah, and yeah, unfortunately, this disease that it really pushed me back in many ways. So.
Do you think there's some silver lining anywhere?
Oh yes, yes, I do.
I'm gonna skip ahead just because I'm realizing I'm probably gonna go over time a little bit. But just to show a couple more clips. I don't know, but they're in the slides if you feel like you want to watch them, or if you have feedback from you too, that'd be helpful. But I'll just play another one with a different speaker.
Oh, that's Sundar, me, and looks like Shyam.
Oh, can you say who they are in relation to you?
Shyam is my nephew.
And how old are all of you?
Hold on, it's me or? Oh, sure.
I think it's you. That's all this one.
Sundar probably was, I don't know, maybe I probably was 11, Sundar probably was 7.
And then how old was Sean?
Sean was 18.
Yeah, it's also funny with some of the interviews how much you forget. Like, I mean, I think I could talk about this one because it's my parents. So I feel more comfortable giving away information. But in this one, my dad can't even remember if like this is him or one of his siblings because he has so many siblings. But yeah, I feel like it's been nice because the interviews also kind of reflect the fuzziness that we experience when we try to remember past events.
Oh, that's Sundar, me, and
okay. All right, I'm gonna skip this one for time.
In family, one person goes.
Nope. Okay. So I also wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the actual collection of the training data of the family photographs because it's made me think about, or led me to the opinion that I think every database is an archive. And I say that because especially with this information that's so personal for myself, but also my family members, I think I've had to really think about, or it's been helpful to reframe my thinking around these images as an archive rather than a database, because although I'm using them as training data for this machine learning model, I'm also at the same time compiling images that will, that hopefully I can make available to my family. So it's also like a digitization and an archiving project. I have like over 1,000 images that I scanned one by one, and it took me a long time. Probably that was the most work out of the entire project, more than like the machine learning stuff. So I've had to think a lot about how am I going to organize these images? How am I going to store them? How am I going to share them in a way that's, I guess, useful, but also respecting privacy? How am I going to handle the fact that I now have these images that are compiled that are an intersection of my both my parents' families, when some images may be relevant to certain relatives versus relevant to other relatives. So kind of handling the metadata around these images has been difficult. Also collecting the metadata around these images, like and identifying people in these images has been difficult. I have a really large family. My dad's one of 10, and my mom, well, I guess my mom's one of 3, which isn't that large. But yeah, still, I have like over 20 cousins, and figuring out who people are. I mean, you saw my dad couldn't even recognize himself in the photo of him and his brother. So yeah, it's been difficult trying to collect this metadata, and I've actually, this isn't part of the artwork, but it's just kind of almost like a side project, is trying to collate all this information. And so I actually made a website just for my family members to and I'm not going to share it because it's meant just for them, but this is like a screenshot of it for them to help me start compiling information around each image. So, and I also like have done work trying to figure out, this is a GIF of my family tree. So, I mean, just to, I guess, explain how complicated it becomes trying to identify people. Yeah, it's more like a forest. So I really needed my relatives' help to compile information around each photo so that it can be searchable if I do make a digital archive, I guess. But those are questions that are still up in the air for me, but I think are worth mentioning, especially if you're thinking about working with machine learning. And I think if you're thinking about creating a database of any kind, even if it's not about necessarily family photos or personal information, because you're still, there's still a lot of weight and responsibility in hosting those images and gathering those images. If they are images, it could be text or other kinds of data, but just really thinking through like what information is important, because you'll inevitably leave something out. So for example, what metadata did I want to collect? I thought through these questions, and for me, I was curious about how many people in the archive were actually relatives of mine and how many, maybe related through marriage or family friends. So that was like a question that I had. But this is still very centered around me, right? Like that might not be a relevant question to a relative going through this archive. So I guess that's what I mean by you'll always leave something out when you're deciding what metadata and how you want to organize your database. So at least just being intentional or aware of that. But yeah, this is a screenshot of the website and how my relatives can go through and answer questions and see a face and then see what the original photograph was. Okay, so I do have a little more work to show that relates more closely to the technical demo that we're going to do. But I realize I've been talking for a long time. So maybe we should take a little break.
A few moments later.
Right, Aarati?
Oh, yes. I was getting distracted in the chat. I was getting conversations. Yes, let's get back started. I guess I should move out of the play area, right? Okay. All right, where are we? All right, I just have another work to show. I know I've been talking a lot about my work, but we will get to the technical demo. But I wanted to show it because it relates more closely to what we'll be doing, or the techniques that I use relates more closely to what we'll be doing. So this was my thesis project in grad school. It was called Afterimage, and it was a video installation. And I also made some prints, but so I guess I have worked with video before. I didn't think about that. But this was a little bit different in that I was working with. I did work with family photographs, but I also worked with this archive called the Studies in Tamil Studio Archives and Society. They're really interesting. They've been gathering studio photography taken between the 1880s and the 1980s in Tamil Nadu, and they gave me access to the digital images that they had collected, or the digitized archive, I guess. And I combined it with my own family photographs, a lot of which were taken in the same area and time period. And I was, in this case, interested in finding commonalities across the images in terms of how people were posed, like subject matter. And so I can show you, or I guess the image that you're looking at here is like a top view of an installation that I made that was essentially a table with lots and lots of images on it from the archive and my own personal archive. and they're kind of clustered. And the clusters are denoted by these little borders here that are kind of hard to see at this size, but I'll show a video that maybe you can see it better there. But yeah, so they're clustered by similarity. So for example, let's see. Yeah, in the top right corner, these are all pictures of couples that are kind of, or at least two people that are cropped from like the chest up. And I did this by using a pre-trained model. I was using, I think, TensorFlow and like image to text. And then using, for people that are interested, k-nearest neighbors to cluster them. But however, I should say that I didn't really only use machine learning in this case. I was using a combination of my own sorting skills. And so what I did was I ran all of the images through a script that was like identified common objects. So it'd be like two people or like a chair, and use that to then cluster the images. But it was very hit or miss. Like there was a lot of images in a cluster that shouldn't have been in there, or it was missing images. And so I then had to go back and really go through each image by myself and adjust the clusters there. So that was, and I mentioned that because in thinking about bias, because I used a pre-trained model that was trained on digital images and color images, using it on these black and white older images, it didn't work so well. But I also made these kind of ghost images that you see that are basically a collage of all the images in the cluster. So we go back to like the two people here, or I think, yeah, this one's couples. So this little ghost image is all of the images in the cluster just aligned and squished together. And that's what we're going to do today. And I'll just show you a video so you can see what I mean rather than just see it on the tiny screen. And then I had a video piece that was embedded in the center of the table that where my hand is, I'm coming in and placing a family photograph of mine in the center, and then on the left, similar images from the STARS archive come up. And I think on the right is just the similar images, but it's the pose estimation view. But I guess, yeah, it's still hard to see, but you can kind of see the ghost images. I ended up making prints as well of these ghost images that are probably a little bit easier to see than this, at least through screen share. So let me, I think those are on the next. Yeah, so these are Risograph prints. So I made the ghost image, and then I printed them with gold ink on black paper. So that's why they're kind of gold and fuzzy like this. But for example, this one that I'm pointing at right now was from a cluster of images of couples standing. And I aligned it around all of or whoever was standing on the left, I aligned their faces in order to get this kind of effect. And I did the same thing down here. This was like couples where one person was sitting and one person was standing. And I aligned around the person sitting in order to get like enough consistency where you can see the similarity come through, I guess, the collage of the images. And that's what we're going to do today with the scripts that I've written. And that's why I asked you all to bring in several images. Okay. Oh yeah, and this is just an example. So yeah, these were all the images that were, there's probably more than this, but these are some of the images that were collaged together to get what you see on the right. And then this, okay, so at this point, this is where you will probably need to open up the slideshow yourself, because I have some links here that are important. I have a link to sample images if you didn't bring anything in. You're welcome to use that. And then I have a link to a Collab notebook. So you could just, if you click on this link and just leave it open for now, I'll talk about what it is in the next slide. But then on the right here, this is just an example of I ran the script that we're going to run on family.
Can you post the links in the chat, Aarati? Because we can't click.
Oh yeah, no problem. Let me put a link. I'll put a link to the slideshow, and then I'll put a link directly to the Collab notebook. So when you click on the Collab notebook, you should see this averaging_demo.i. Is it working?
Yeah, great.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just talk a little bit about what it will do. So we're going to run 2 different scripts that I've written in this Collab notebook. The first one will align the photos using a pre-trained face detection model. And I have information about how that model, or the training data that model was ran on, because it's pre-trained, meaning we're not training our own model here. We're using a model that's already been trained on this facial recognition or facial data set. So this is a data set of images probably scraped from the internet, from Flickr. I was trying to figure out exactly where they scraped the images from, but I was having a hard time, which is interesting because I feel like you would think that information would be more available. But anyway, so this model is able to recognize key points on the face. So you can kind of see that in these example images. And that's what we're going to use to align the images. So if you brought in images that don't have human faces in them, that's okay. You can just skip this script, and because we'll have another script that will actually like collage the images together. But yeah, and so the idea is it will find the key points on each image and then use that to align the eyes. So it might rotate the image a little bit and then or translate it, but it's trying to get a face in like dead center. And if you have an image with 2 faces in them, it will save 2 copies of the image. One where like one face is dead center, and then another one where another face is dead center. And it will output the aligned images. So these are some examples of aligned images to a folder in your Google Drive. So I guess the second component here is you need to be logged into a Google account because we'll be using Google Drive as well as a place for us to like upload image or for our Collab notebook to read your input images. So, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, and then the second script will just collage them together like this. Any questions before we begin? Okay. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is in order to save your progress, you won't want to work directly in my notebook here. You'll want to make a copy for yourself. So do save, copy, and drive. So file, save a copy and drive. And then you can name this however you please by just clicking on the name. Or you could just leave it a copy of averaging them. That's fine too. But this will just allow you to save changes. And I would also close my original one that was open because you don't want to get confused between them. And then I want to spend some time just looking at Google Colab for folks that may not be familiar with it. Google Colab is, I like to think of it as Google Docs for Python. It's you can share code and you run code in sequential blocks. And you can also have blocks that are just text. So this first block here is just an intro. And then I'll just scroll down so you can see, but you kind of run pieces of code, chunks of code at one at a time by literally hitting like a play button and then moving on to the next one, hitting the play button, moving on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So we'll just walk together, running them one by one. And then another thing to point out in this interface is on the left here, you have some icons. We'll specifically be working a lot with the folder icon here. If you click on that, and you might need to wait a second, you'll see this. And we are going to connect to our Google Drive. We haven't done it yet, so you don't see anything here. You just see sample data, and you can ignore that. Don't click on this up arrow. If you do, it's fine. I can help you, but it changes the view and it can get kind of confusing. So don't click on this. But I just wanted to show you, you can look at the files in your project by clicking on this folder and expanding it and closing it. And what we're going to do next is connect to our Google Drive, and then you'll eventually be able to see your Drive files in here too. So what you'll want to do before you run this first block of code, your images that you've brought in, upload them to a folder in your Google Drive. And let's see, an example. Yeah, so I would just make a new folder. And then upload your images to that folder. And I kind of always say, when you're naming things for code, I find it really helpful to avoid using capitals and spaces because sometimes, I don't think in this case it'll be fine, but sometimes spaces can cause errors. And then also with capitals, it's just annoying to remember to capitalize things. So to avoid small syntax errors, I like to name my folders and files with just all lowercase. And I use underscores if I need to use a space. And then you'll want to hit play, and it will ask you, permit this notebook to access your Google Drive files. And you want to say connect to Google Drive. It'll probably have you choose an account if you have multiple Google accounts. And you basically want to hit allow at every stage. You're giving this notebook access to read files and write files to your drive. And so now, and it might take a couple seconds, but then if you open up the folder, you should see this new folder pop up that says Drive. And when you open that, you should see My Drive, and then you can see all of your folders and files. And you want to find that folder that you just made. And I'll pause here because I'm going kind of fast. Let me just check. Anyone have any questions? Okay. And then I'm going to use this sample folder of just paintings, which is not the most exciting thing, but I have it set up already. So for you, imagine that this Neo-Rococo folder is your folder of images. And so you want to locate that in your Google Colab notebook. And then you want to click on the 3 dots and click on copy path. And this will copy the path, copy the directions, I guess you could say, to this folder. And we're going to use that in the next step. Oh, sorry, in the next step. But first, you're going to just run step 2. And I already have this stuff downloaded, so mine's really fast, but yours might take a little more time. But step 2 is downloading my scripts from GitHub. And then okay, and then before I get to step 3, is everyone, maybe, can I get like a 1 in the chat if you are okay? Oh, okay, I see some questions. I just made a Google Drive folder. Okay, yeah, I figured uploading your stuff would take some time. Okay, so once you've uploaded your images to your Google Drive folder, switch back to your Collab notebook. If you haven't already, click play on step 1, and it will kind of pop up a bunch of windows asking if you want to give permission to your for this notebook to read your Google Drive. You basically want to hit yes and allow at every stage to give access to read and write files to your Google Drive. And then you're going to hit play. Once that's done, and you'll know it's done because there'll be a green check mark when a block of code is complete. And then you can hit play on the next step as well. And that will download scripts that I've written from GitHub into your drive so that we can use them in this notebook. And then you're going to wait for the green check mark. And once you get the green check mark on step 2, can you please put an emoji in the chat just so I can see where people are at? Okay, we've got 4 emojis. Oh, Deepika. Okay, great. What about Pratna? Okay, great. Did I forget anyone? Okay, I'm going to keep going, but I can always review if you need help. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is open up the folder icon if you haven't already, like open up this panel. And I'll just do it from the beginning so you can see. So you're going to click on this folder. You're going to open up Drive. What we're doing right now is finding the folder that you just uploaded to your drive. So we're going to expand Drive. You're going to expand My Drive. And then yours is going to look different because this is what I have in my Google Drive. But you should see the folders that are in your Google Drive. And you want to find the folder with your images in it. And so for me, that's a folder called Neo Rococo because I am using Rococo paintings as sample images. But once you find that folder, you're going to click on the 3 dots that appear when you hover over it and do copy path. So I'll say it one more time just for folks. You're going to click on the folder and then expand drive, expand my drive, find the folder where your images are, hover over the name of that folder, and you should see 3 dots on the right, and then select copy path. And I'm going to look back at the chat just to see if anyone is not able to find anything. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to move on to the next step, but just let me know in the chat if I'll periodically check. And so the next step, step 3, we need to actually change some things in the code. So this is a moment where you will need to actually edit the code a little bit. So first, I guess before we talk about actually editing it, let me just explain what the code is. So I made a little breakdown in the slideshow. Okay, so the code that is in that code block looks something like this. You can kind of think of it in different pieces. So the first is saying, I'm going to use Python. The second one is saying, I want to run this script with Python. And this is referring to a script that we downloaded from my GitHub account in step 2. And so we're saying, like, run this script with Python. And then the next 2 pieces are really important because that's going to tell it what images to align and then where to save the aligned images. So the images that we want it to align are in our folder. And so we need to change what's inside of the quotations. So right after -- in directory, we want to change what's inside of the quotations to the pathway to your folder, which you just copied when you did copy path. And then out directory is going to be where those images are saved. You can just leave it the way it is. Or if you feel comfortable, you can change it if you want to. But right now, I think by default, I have it. It's going to create a folder in your drive called Face Align Workshop, and it will save the aligned images in there. If you want to change the name of the folder, you can do that. You would just edit Face Align Workshop to something else. But the really important part is that it's reading your images. So mine happens to be Rococo, so it'll look the same. But this is the part that you're trying to change. You want to change what's inside of the quotes right after -- in directory. And you're just going to paste what you've copied. So for you, that might look a little different. It would just be like your folder name. You just want to highlight what's in the quotes right after in directory, INDIR, and then paste your path. And you can save your notebook too at this point. And I just saved it by doing Command S on my Mac, but you can also just do file save. Not save the copy, but just save. And then let me check the chat just to get a temperature check. Okay, maybe if you need more time before the next step, put an emoji in the chat. Or there's already emojis in there. Let's do something else. Put a smiley face in the chat specifically if you need more time. More time. Okay, I will wait a little bit. But basically, once you've done that, you can hit play. Because it'll take a moment, depending on how many images you have. But you should see like the names of your files pop up. If you're not seeing anything, there could be a couple of reasons for that. And we can talk about what those reasons might be. If you are interested in training your own GAN, just as a side note, I pretty much ran the same process, not only to collage my images together, but also for my the project that I showed in the beginning of the presentation, because I needed because I only had like a little over 1,000 family photographs. By aligning them by face, I was kind of creating more consistency between photographs, and that helps with your model, because basically like the more homogeneous your data set is, the less images or text or whatever it is you need. And so by aligning all of the images by face, that kind of allowed me to use 1,000 or so, and I did some other things too, but allowed me to use 1,000 images or so for my training data and get the results that I did, because that's considered, I mean, I think 1,000 is pretty small.
Aarati, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but a couple of questions coming in the chat.
Oh yeah, let me see. Do we need to also change out directory? Oh, good question. So you don't necessarily need to. What out directory is doing is it's basically the place that you want the aligned images to be saved. And so by default, I made it so that it will create a folder called Face Align Workshop, but you're welcome to change that if you want it to save if you want the folder to be called something else or saved in a specific place. But you just need to keep like this content/drive/my drive stuff in order for it to save in your drive. The existing path didn't work. When did it not create a, well, let me show you what it's supposed to look like first, and then we can, because I think at this point, usually there are some discrepancies with different, or like troubleshooting to do. So what it should have done is saved at the top level of your drive. And I'm just looking at my drive in a different window because I find it also helpful to look at it like this. It should have saved a folder called Face Align Workshop. Face Align Workshop there. And in that folder should be aligned images like this. But obviously your images, not these ones. Is anyone not, I guess 2 questions. Is anyone not seeing the folder itself? Which I think would be a different error than if the folder's empty. So anyone having either one of those 2 issues, like the folder is empty or the folder is not showing up? Yes, you have to run the script first. So you would have to press play here and wait for the green check mark. And when it's running, you should see the names of your files pop up here. I'm also curious when you look at the aligned images, because sometimes I don't see any in my batch, but sometimes it will think something that is not a face is a face and center it. I'm curious if anyone had an instance like that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next portion, but oh wait, let's see. Sorry, I'm getting an error on sub 3. Python 3 can't open align faces wide prop, no such file or directory. Matilda, did you run step 2? Like if you scroll up to step 2, is there a green check mark? Hopefully you guys can't hear it, but my upstairs neighbor is a drummer. And so there's always like drumming going on all day. But maybe I can just explain the next step and we can come back to Matilda and anyone else that has any questions. But we're on step 4 now. And so here again, we may need to change some things. Depending on whether you change the name of the out directory folder, or let me rephrase. If you didn't change the name of the out directory folder in the previous step, then you don't need to do anything. If you did change it, you just want to make sure that the in directory on step 4 is the same as your out directory. So where it says Facealign Workshop, if you changed Facealign Workshop in the previous step, just change it here as well. Because this step is going to actually collage all of the images together. And so in directory in this case is should be pointing to wherever the aligned images are. And then when you've done that, you can hit play. And I'm just, the out directory you'll notice here is just /content. That means it's going to just save all the way at the bottom in your notebook. If you want, you can save it in your drive. You would just need to change it to /content/drive/my drive. But I think it's fine if we just leave it as is for now. And then once you get the green check mark here, you're going to wait a couple seconds. You might need to also hit refresh. This icon up here just refreshes the file view. So I'm going to hit refresh. And then if I scroll all the way down, I should see a file called average.png. That is the image that is all collaged together. So you want to find that. It most likely is all the way at the bottom. If you're not seeing it yet, try hitting refresh. And then you're going to hit on click the 3 dots and then hit download. And then you should see your image. There it is. All of the Rococo paintings squished together. And then if you feel up to it, I would love to see what you've made. So you could put it, and then maybe I might need some help from people that are more familiar with GatherTown, but I believe you can add an image in the gallery area. Repeats step 4 again. Yes. Let's go to step 4. Okay. So on step 4, you only need to change the in directory if you changed the out directory in the past one. So, so if you left, like in step 3, if you left the out directory the same, if you left it as Facealign Workshop, you don't need to do anything. If you changed it here, you just want to also change it in directory so that they match, because this should be reading from where your aligned images were saved, if that makes sense. And do we change the out directory at this step? You don't need to. The way that I've had it, I set it up by default, it will save just directly down here as a file called average.png. However, if you'd like for it to save directly to your drive, you can change this to content drive/my drive, and it will save in your Google Drive. But otherwise, you can also just download it here. If you leave it the same, it will show up at the bottom of your file view, and you might need to hit refresh once you've run that. And refresh is this icon here. But you're looking for a file called average.png once you get the green check mark on step 4. Can someone from the, or could someone help me a little bit with instructions on how to put an image into GatherTown?
Ambika might know that better, probably.
I don't think it works.
Yeah, I also tried, but yeah.
If you, Aarti, you can send it to me on WhatsApp and I can make a Google Drive link or something if required.
Okay, I can actually do that because I had one in here and then I was like, oh, we should put it in GatherTown, but we can't.
Or you can just put it in the slides, because I can see that a lot of people are logged into the slides directly.
Yeah, let me make a.
That makes it easy for you.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna make a drive folder. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it on slide 42, and I'll also put it in the chat.
Okay, maybe I don't know if we can make people like give them the build access, and if they want to put it there.
Oh yeah, that works too.
Sinem, what do you think about that?
Sorry, can you say it again?
I can give builder access to everybody on on the gather, and then they can lay it onto the space on the right side in the showcase area.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Let me just figure that
I
out.
think Drive would also work. But
maybe Drive is better for general documentation.
I was just trying to rerun with different images.
Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting when you have like a lot of images to see.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was just trying something with less images. I tried the Rococo dataset before. Now I was trying with like less images. I was wondering if it's going to, adopt the colors only, if it's this less.
It should include the colors. I think you'll probably just be able to see the individual images more clearly through in the collage. And I feel like for those that are, I guess, used to Adobe products, I mean, this is something that you could do in Photoshop, but I think using a script for it, right? I feel like the advantage of using a script for it is like the automation, right? Like being able to do it with hundreds of images, and also the aligning by face. For the prints that I made, I actually didn't use the align by face script because I had, am I still sharing my screen? Oh yeah. Because I had them like to the side, So I actually just went into Photoshop and aligned all the images first and then exported them as layers. And then I used my script to collage them together, which I probably could have done in Photoshop, but yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
How do you rerun the script? I've closed it and tried making a new copy of the notebook. Used too many sessions. Oh yeah, that can happen. Yeah, actually that's an interesting thing to talk about because when you're running these scripts, you're actually not running them on your machine. You're running them in the cloud, which I don't like that term, but you're running them on a computer that Google owns. And so they kind of limit the amount of sessions you can have because they don't want you to run like a million scripts on the computer. So what you need to do if you get like the too many sessions error, you go to runtime, manage sessions, and then terminate the ones you're not using. So even though you close the browser of the previous script, it's probably still running. So you just can terminate it. And actually, the fact that it's running on the cloud or running on a computer that Google owns is helpful to know because, for example, when you're training your own model, you can use Google Collab to do that because you can't really train a model on, or at least I can't. I have a MacBook and I can't train on my laptop. My laptop's not powerful enough. So I use like Google Collab and I have like a pro account, which just gives me more GPU stuff. But yeah, another use for this application, I guess. Ooh, okay, yes. Now I see all these. Maybe we can go through. I would love to go through and just hear about can people talk on Gather Town? Or like
Yeah. We need to be all close together.
Okay, maybe we can all go into the showcase area and then we can all talk about what we averaged. Cool. Maybe we can start with Pragna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So this was, first of all, super fun. I was actually super interested in this workshop for my own thesis because I'm doing something super similar, but with Indian matchboxes. And for this part of workshop, I really enjoyed, and it was interesting to see how the faces get merged together. Because also my images were not, I don't take too many photos of myself, so my images were not picture of me, but it was all my friends and some passport photographs and all the random images. So yeah, and you've made it super easier to understand Google Collab. I'm not a coder, I'm just learning, so this was super interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's cool you can see like all of the edges of all the different formats of the images. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Hi, it's mine. It looks a little wild because it shows so many pictures with people who are posing very differently from each other. Some faces are even covered sometimes and from multiple angles. So you can see the white canvases in the background overlapping.
It's interesting. It looks like, or it's interesting that you can see someone's ear over here. Like it probably aligned by like one eye or something.
Yeah, I think so.
That's cool. Are these images that you took?
No, I just Googled copyright-free images.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Oh, interesting.
Hi, this is Deepika.
Hi.
Hi, I actually used a few of my paintings, and it's interesting what it's done. I usually refer to my own face while painting, so it's aligned the face, and it sort of looks like me. It's funny.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
it's cool that I was able to get or like recognize faces, because I mean it does work with paintings and like representations of faces, but yeah, it worked pretty well with this. It was cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting result. I don't know what to make of it. I don't fully understand the logic, but this is my first time with AI, so I guess it's funky.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Whoa.
Oh, I think we cannot hear them.
Okay, I was wondering if it's only me or. Yeah, we cannot hear some weird.
I was looking at your faces and I realized.
Yeah, we're not hearing clearly.
It sounds.
Change my headphones.
Yes, it's we hear that. Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So my headphones were the problem. This image was made up out of several images that were taken at a party. So we had a camera and then a buzzer. So the camera was on a tripod, and we had this buzzer that you can hit, and then a lot of group party pictures happened, and the background was pitch black because it was in the night, and that's why we have this this really nice dark background, and also all the bodies down there, and also an average person that was attending there as well.
Interesting. Yeah, it's really, it has like a really nice gradient in the background, going from the black to, I guess, where people were other people were standing. Does it look like your friends?
No, not really. It mostly looks kind of like me. It reminds me mostly of me. So I don't know. My friends look pretty different. So I think I'm the only one with blonde hair. So yeah, maybe I took a lot of pictures of me in there. But I was also the host of the party, so I think I also took a lot of people took pictures with me.
Oh yeah, so you might be like, or yeah, your face might be in there the most.
And also that was interesting. There were like more than just 2 people. There were like maybe 8 or 9 people in one picture, and it also worked pretty well.
Cool. Yeah, and you can kind of actually see like the clothing, or like or I see like kind of, it almost looks like a suit jacket or something.
Yeah, could be. So it was pretty formal.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how you can pull out like details that speak to the context of the images. But thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, this is also mine. I did a little bit more, because once you have it set up, you just need to click and it goes so quickly. So this is my wife and me, and she was wearing a hat a lot of the time. So yeah, this is the pinkish thing on her head.
And I guess she must have had, how many images are is this made of?
Maybe just 20, something like that.
Yeah, because it's interesting that the smile is consistent throughout.
And there's also me in there, but yeah, she was stronger, I guess.
Really interesting. Oh, it kind of looks like in this one that it got the faces in the background.
Yeah, this is actually a very small data set. So it's just 5 images, images of myself and my sister and my mom. And people tell us like that we look alike a lot. And so I just want. But yes, it did.
Oh, I think you cut out a little bit. Or at least
do you hear me now?
Yes. But I think you cut out when you're saying it's a picture of, or that you all look alike, similar. I think we lost you. Is Facebook? Yes, I can. Sorry, I was just looking at the chat. I think we lost you, but yeah, look, you can see like a blown up image of what's in the background, which is interesting.
Hi.
Hi.
So most of the pictures are like myself, selfies that I took with my phone. But also there are some pictures of my mom and my brother, and also my partner. So I think like the mustache is from my partner, and I think the glasses are from my mom. And also like had different haircuts, so that you can see like the fringe as well.
Oh yeah, did you have really, or I guess that could someone else, but short hair.
Yeah.
It's also interesting looking at the patterns of the clothing too.
Yeah. And also the eyes are really consistent.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my god. Who did this?
Okay, that's me again. I've totally forgot about the royalty-free thing and just downloaded a bunch of pictures from Elon Musk. Just went to Google Images and downloaded all the pictures from that page with the Chrome plugin. Yeah, it's Elon Musk. He's looking as scary as he's always looking. I guess it's no difference.
Oh my god. Yeah. Interesting. What plug? Oh, could you put the plugin in the chat? That's kind of interesting.
The download all images thing. Yeah, It's really great, especially if you want to train your own. Again, I'm using that for that.
Oh, cool. Interesting. This might be mine because I just did the Rococo ones. Where are we? Did I skip any? Matilda.
Sorry, I think I was cut out for a bit. Do you want us to talk about the input images?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's like about 11 or so. They were all mine. And some of them were taken in studio, so like as in actual like studio photography kind of images, which can then, I guess, perhaps, result in that light, because like a few of these headshots have this like quite bright light on the face, which is a kind of cool effect because it really detaches the face from the background. And that's probably from these pictures. I don't know. I think the eyes are really interesting because it's kind of a mix, or you wouldn't really reckon like where these traits are from. But they're like men and women, I think about equally. A few pictures of me. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting result.
Cool. Yeah, the eyes are really strong. Interesting. Yeah, I also like, how many images did you use?
11.
Okay. Yeah, I like that you can see the individuals kind of through, or at least the backgrounds through the map. That's cool. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for helping.
Oh my gosh. Wait, why am I going backwards here? Did I go? Oh, I think I got through. Wait, no. Yeah.
That's me. So I tried something new and I put like a couple of illustrations I did, which were all, kind of portraits. And yeah, like it had this, background thing. So that's why the background stroke is that stroke. They all had that background stroke. Yeah, like I'm also trying to do one for my face right now. I'm working on it.
Did it, I imagine with the illustrated ones, did you just run the second script on it?
Yeah.
Or I mean, did it, like it didn't work with the facial alignment?
No, okay. Yeah, I tried actually two things. Can you get out of here?
Yes.
So there should be an, can you click to the very right one? The very right one. Yeah. So I run that with the second script, and this is what appeared. And like there was an illustration of the emoji, although it was only one of them, like with the emoji, But somehow the emoji got really strong here. So I took the emoji out this time, and it was like two emojis next to each other. It centered one. You see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took the emoji from the dataset, like I took it out, then rerun it by changing the second part for the same folder as well. So I was just like, I don't know, trying things.
Oh yeah, actually I forgot to mention that if you run it again, I mean, I think most of you figured this out already on your own, but if you run it again, you'll have to pick out the unless you want to average everything together. But like if you run it the first time, your cropped, your aligned images are saved in that folder. So like just check the aligned folder and take out anything you don't want to collage if you don't want to collage, like, for example, like the Rococo. But I think in this case, you did want to collage everything together, right? But basically, like, these Rococo images are left over from when you tried it with the paintings. Okay, let me see. I think I got everybody's that's in here, at least right now. Thanks for sharing. These are so interesting. Yeah, and it's really cool that it's working with like representational faces as well, these paintings. Yeah. How much time? We have like 10 minutes left?
Yes, 10.
Okay, cool. Let me ask, I think I saw a couple questions. We will talk about how find more code. Oh yeah. Yeah, and someone asked, I think earlier, about the what I use to animate the images. I can share that resources. You can find a lot of like Collab notebooks that other people have written, because it's like, I mean, yeah, I feel like people like, oops, I stopped sharing tonight. Because I feel like, for example, with the StyleGAN, when I was running, I added, now I'm getting tired and I'm not making sense. Wake up. Okay, so I added to the reference library, which you can get to from the slideshow, or I also made a little library area in the Gather Town, and I'll also put this in the chat. But in this file, in this doc, I've added some resources, and you can also feel free to add your own. There should be edit access for everybody. But I put a couple things in particular in relation to those questions. I specifically, for the first work that I was showing with the generated images and the video piece, I used two different types of machine learning models. The first one was called a StyleGAN. I think I said it was a GAN, but I didn't mention the exact one, StyleGAN. And so if you're interested in working with StyleGAN, there are a few different ways you can approach it. If you're interested in like running it, or like, I guess, getting more comfortable with coding, or if you are already comfortable with Python, you can run it in a Collab notebook, which is what I did. And I don't have the exact link, but I can add it later. But I mean, StyleGAN has its own GitHub repo with like, I think there's like a official GitHub repo, and I think they have like a Collab notebook somewhere in here. But it's a little bit tricky, and you would need also to have a pro account, because I guess when you're on the free tier of Google Colab, you don't necessarily have the access to the type of GPU that you would need, or like the type of computer, I guess, specs that you would need to run some types of machine learning stuff. And then the other, so I guess, yeah, you'd have to keep that in mind. But then if you could also use, and I find this helpful, especially if you just want to like try it out, but there's less, I guess, leeway to really customize. But you can use, there are now 2 apps that I can think of that you can use that are kind of like no code applications for working with machine learning. One of them is Runway, and I put it down here, Runway ML. And then there's another one called Playform. And you can work with StyleGAN in there. Like you can just upload your images and output them. I think Playform has more, I can't really remember what their pricing is like for both of them, but I want to say that Runway is more expensive than Playform. I can't remember. They both work with like subscription models, and they're kind of like pricey. And also I would say like, I think they're helpful if you want to just try things out. But something to note is that it works with something called transfer learning. So I talked about pre-trained models, meaning like the model has already been trained and we're just using it. And then when you train something yourself from scratch, you're training the model on your own images or own text or whatever, depending on the type of model. When you use something like Playform or Runway, you can't really train entirely from scratch. It's like you're using a pre-trained model and then training it some more. So you might start with a model that's trained on faces and then train it on your own faces. And so that usually is not that big of a deal. Like it doesn't really mean much for what you're trying to do. But for me, for example, I wanted to make sure that my model was only trained on family photos and not anything else. And so, that's one reason why I didn't use something like Runway. So that's just something to keep in mind. But because it uses transfer learning, or because you're training on top of like a pre-trained model or a partially trained model, you can get away with using a lot less images, which is nice. I think like with Runway, they recommend like at least 500 images, which is like way less than thousands of images that you normally need. So, and I think it's helpful, especially if you're not comfortable with coding, to just like be able to be hands-on, even just to try it once or twice. And they have other features besides GANs as well. And then also, other thing is animating the images. I used another model called the first order motion model, and I didn't train this from scratch. I just used a pre-trained model on interview videos, because in this case I don't know, this is where I kind of talk myself into circles, because I'm like, oh, I want it to only be trained on family photos, but in this case it's still using like the gestures from my videos, like the videos of my relatives, but it's just been trained on the movements of like interview videos. But this one is really fun because I don't think you need, if you want to run the Collab notebook associated with this model, you don't need a pro count. It'll work with smaller videos. And they have like a demo Collab notebook somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. And they have different presets. Like if you want to animate someone moving, you might use this one. Or if you're working with cartoons or images like that, you might use that one. Where's their Collab? Okay, I found it. I'll put this in the chat. But in the end, you can just like, no, it doesn't show you what it looks like. ebsynth.com. Was that for, oh, interesting. I have never seen this one before.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because you only feed in one illustration, and then you can like make a video. I took, for example, a video of myself, and then you can like animate something with your face just in this art style. So it's a little bit different than those deepfake stuff. And you can download it, and it just runs on your machine, and it works on a normal Mac machine for my part. So no, you don't have to have a supercomputer for that.
Is it running like for example, if you run the model on a video of your face and your illustration, is it, you have to pay for like the number of frames that it's?
No, you don't have to pay anything. I think it's still in an open beta. That's why they don't charge you anything. This was the last time I used it. I don't think there's a pricing attached. Is it free? Yes, beta version is still free, even for commercial use. So yeah, there's also a great tutorial. I can put it in the chat as well if you like. We'll look it up.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Yeah, it looks pretty smooth. Cool. Oh, let's I'm gonna add it to the document too.
Can you check the link for the tutorial? But because I think you also copied my name in there. No, okay, it worked. Yeah, it's also a pretty funny tutorial. So even if you don't want to do it, just watch the tutorial. It's fun just by itself.
Cool. Oh, interesting. Oops. Oh no, I accidentally opened it. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, if anyone thinks of other resources, definitely feel free to add it to this doc. I'm hoping we can just keep this as like a shared resource list. Oh, is there anything else I wanted to talk about on this? I think some of the other things I put on here are not so technical. Like I really like this blog that's part of the Photographers Gallery in London. But they have a lot of really interesting writings on photography and machine learning and art, like really thoughtful pieces. So I linked some and some other readings, and then yeah, and then I also have some reading on Asian American history because I was thinking about that a lot with my work and thinking about intergenerational memory. And archives. SADA is like an archive based in the US that's like the South Asian American Digital Archive. They do a lot of really interesting work. And actually, I should credit them because when I was trying to figure out my process for collecting family photos and preserving them, I took an online workshop with them that really helped. And then I see Kwan has added an image. Do you want to talk about it? Oops. Kwan, are you there?
Maybe not.
It's okay.
Or maybe there's an issue with the mic, or I don't. Yeah, it was great. I'm still trying to figure things. I think my dataset is a bit biased. I couldn't change the outcome much. I was trying to do that. Yeah, it was really great. And I would
One
like
second, Aarti, do you mind unsharing your screen so we can see?
Oh, sorry, I forgot that I have to do that. Wait, where am I? Oh, Quantum's too far away.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I trained it on just some of my just images of myself, and was 29 images. Something I found interesting or like funny when I did the image align, because I was looking through the images that was processed and put into the folder, and sometimes it would capture like images of faces that were not mine, and I was like, where did that come from? Or like pictures from like artworks that was in the background. I'm like, I don't recall seeing this image in my picture. And I was like going through my images like, where did this picture come from? Where did this face come from? So it was like a little game in the process as well. But yeah, and I played around a bit with another, before this one I played around with another data set that was just not faces, and it was also cool to see how it stitched everything together as a collage. Should I also add it in here?
Yeah, sure.
Just some pictures from Berlin, and you can see the Berlin Wall in some of it. Upload. Let me see. So I think if you refresh, you should be able to see a file called Berlin. I think you have to open the picture a bit more, and you will see that it's like there's some text from the Berlin Wall with some other images that was just like overlaid. That's cool. But yeah, it's like a really big what do you call it? When you have double exposure or so? Yeah. It's like you have a humongous quadruple. Yeah, quadruple times 10 exposure.
Yeah, very cool. The skyline, or the sky looks really interesting too. Well, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for sharing. If anyone has any questions later on, feel free to reach out to me. I can put my email in the chat.
And thanks for coming as well. And I guess we can close up, right? If there aren't any other questions, or if you want to say anything, just a bye also works. And
maybe we can just appreciate Aarti a bit with the confetti.
Yes, definitely. How did I forget that? And some dancing. So I'm also sending in the chat how to reach us. And as we explained in the beginning, for the graduation show and the guide we are planning to prepare, we will be sending a mail soon to the email addresses that you signed to the Eventbrite with, and then you will be able to join the Slack group to contribute to both of those. So thank you for everyone for coming, and also especially to Aarati. and Ambika as well. Hope to see
Thank
you
you,
all.
Aarti, Sinem,
Thank you.
everyone who joined.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.